believe that the promise that God made to Abraham, while it included, and it started in Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 through 3, the Lord said to Abraham, I will bless those who bless you. I will curse those who curse you. And through you, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. Now, God continued to reiterate that Abrahamic covenant, and it included land. We have a tendency to separate the spiritual parts from the practical parts, but I've been on a journey for the last 15 years, and I've learned so much from my, what I call Jewish Messianic believing brothers and sisters, and how to see the scriptures. And I think that God has been uncovering in our generation, just like modern Israel, it was a nation that hadn't existed for 2,000 years until 1948. And then all of a sudden, this nation gets reborn. Archaeology goes into hyperdrive, and they're dusting, away with those little feather brushes, the debris and the years that have been layer upon layer added, and all of a sudden these ancient ruins are coming to the surface. Ancient cities are being revived, let alone relived in. And I think in many ways, speaking in the big picture, that's happened theologically. When Israel became a nation again, it sent shockwaves throughout the majority of the church, and I'm speaking in the biggest, broadest sense of the church. After Israel was destroyed in 70 AD, Jerusalem, the temple is torn down, the kingdom is born, and the gospel goes from Jerusalem, obviously, to the ends of the earth. After 500 years, after, by 1,000 years, it's like, I think God is done with Israel, per se. And what's incredible is, here we now live in modern times where I think it's very healthy that it's confusing, if I might say that. I think it's healthy that we're actually talking about Israel, because what it means is that something has, while the church said, no, it's over, it's replaced, it's all a spiritual kingdom, now there's actually a debate we're having to second guess. Maybe we were wrong, and maybe when God made a promise to Abraham, not only spiritually, obviously through the Messiah, all the nations will be blessed, but maybe that covenant to Abraham about the land really means everlasting as well. So that's where I come from. I don't try to browbeat others that disagree, but I think God is doing something very particular right now with Israel. A 2,500-year-old prophecy in Ezekiel 37 has come to pass, and we're having to wrestle with that. And I think the Lord wants us to wrestle with it. And in Ezekiel chapter 5, verse 5, the same book that talks about the bones coming together, Ezekiel 5, verse 5, God said he put Jerusalem in the center, right smack dab in the center of the earth. It's, from heaven's perspective and the Creator's perspective, the most important city on planet Earth. Not
Yes.
LA, where they make the movies, not New York, where all the stock market is, or Tokyo or London, but it's Jerusalem. And then he said, I put all the other nations around it. So, I'm 56 years old. I got saved at a Billy Graham film when I was 11, and I started going with my family to the Nazarene church, and my dad got saved, my two younger brothers got saved, and I was learning about Jesus and the disciples, and these guys wearing robes from thousands of years ago, and now I knew when I die I'm going to heaven. But I'll never forget the day that I opened up the San Diego Union, and on the front page of the San Diego Union, in big bold letters, was Israel. I was shocked. So here we are talking about it today.
Yeah, absolutely. Really and truly. Just think when Israel came into being, the fulfillment of prophecy that happened before I was born, but all of those hundreds of years, and there it was, this Jewish state. Unbelievable. All right, we are just getting started, and Ray has done a superb job of setting the groundwork as we roll up our sleeves and examine what he calls, in the title of his book, The Holy Land Key, Understanding Prophecy Through the Lives of Those Living in the Holy Land. Much more right after this.
90.1 FM Moody Radio. Janet Marshall in the market returns following this.
Welcome to Together in the Word. I'm Gary Chapman. The first 3 steps to responding to an angry person are listen, listen, listen. Until you listen 3 times, you will not have a clear picture of why your spouse is angry. When you ask questions and listen intently, your spouse knows that you're taking him or her seriously. The book of Job shows Job experiencing great physical suffering and intense emotions. The longer he talked without feeling someone was listening, the angrier and more frustrated he became. Look at his plea in Job 13, verse 17, where he said, "Listen closely to what I'm about to say. Hear me out." A friend or spouse who listens effectively can have a significant impact. The 4th step is to try to understand your spouse's plight. Put yourself in your spouse's shoes and try to look at the world through his or her eyes. Can you understand why he or she would be upset? Once you've gained new understanding, step 5 is to express that understanding. For example, "Honey, I can understand why you're angry. If I were in your shoes, I'd probably be angry also. It makes sense to me now." In doing so, you cease to be the enemy and you become a friend. And friends can help friends solve problems.
This message was taken from the Love Languages Devotional Bible from Moody Publishers. The Love Languages Devotional Bible is designed to make it easy for couples to get together in the Word, to talk about the relationship, and to pray for and with one another. Learn more at 5lovelanguages.com.
My Jewish friends have a wonderful saying that says, "Next year in Jerusalem." I always like to amend that and say, hey, why not this year in Jerusalem? Well, we're going there, at least in our imaginations this hour, because we're talking about the Holy Land, and in particular, the Holy Land Key. That's the phrase that Ray Bentley uses in the title of his new book. It really is about unlocking end times prophecy by looking at the lives of God's people in Israel. And that means all of God's people in Israel, which is fascinating. So Ray, who is senior pastor of Maranatha Chapel near San Diego, California, is with us and just did a beautiful job of laying out his perspective on this teaching of replacement theology, the so-called idea that somewhere along the way God changes his mind and pulls out the nation of Israel and supplants it with the church instead, church, capital C, universal. You know, Ray, just before we go on, though, I just want to stop for a moment and ruminate on the fact that the God of all creation, the King of the universe, the most holy one who sits on the throne